Hey all. So in this one, what I wanted to go over was a very powerful feature of Streamlit called Streamlit Components. So Streamlit is primarily meant to be just another tool in the data scientist toolbox. It's for quickly being able to prototype something and bring it up in a web interface. But what's really nice about that is since it's already on the web, you can also go further. And if you're familiar with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, basic web design, then you can really take things a lot further. And that's what I'm going through in this one. So right now I'm comparing deadlift and clean and jerk. So we have a component that shows the top 5 athletes for deadlift, and we have a stats component down here. Now this part is done with JavaScript, so if we go ahead and select users, then you see it starts adding up the deadlift and the clean and jerk total. So that's just something that's kind of cool to see. You see we can deselect it and the stats they'll go down, and since it's an HTML component and it just references JavaScript, it's very quick to be able to do that. No rerun necessary. So that's what I wanted to go over, so let's get into it. Alright, so to start off, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start creating the component right now. So we'll just call this athletes underscore HTML. And we'll set this equal to just one. It'll just look like one big string. So let's go ahead and get that set up. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to do, this is where the HTML comes in. We'll have a div and we'll have a closing div. And these are just like sections of text that you could have. So we'll have an H3 element in here, which is a heading level 3, and we'll just say top 5 athletes by, and then we'll actually make this an F string so that we can say x axis display. Alright, so now we have that out there. So to actually display this, we are going to do st.components I always spelled that wrong, .v1.html, and then this will be our athlete HTML, and then that's the first parameter. So the second parameter is the actual height that we want to give to this, which just because we're going to make this a much bigger component, I'll just do that right now. So we'll start at 1200, and then we'll save that and bring this over. Click always rerun. And you can see it's black text on a black background, so you really can't see it. So this is where we can also put some CSS in this too. So if you're not familiar with that, that is how you style these components. So all of your styles will live in a separate style block that you can create with HTML. And then how we do this is we give things classes in HTML. So we'll call this, let's call it athletes section. So now we can reference that class in the style block and be able to style it. So the way that we reference classes is we start with a dot, and that is the notation for it. And now usually what you would do is you'd use one set of brackets like this, but because we're inside essentially a big string here in Python, we actually need to escape that and put in a second set of brackets to be able to have it properly display. And we'll just say color white, just so that it shows up properly. And then we'll rerun that. And there. So top 5 athletes by age. So now we have something styled basically. So let's move on. So let's move on to actually creating the athletes section here. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this in a much larger div. So we'll tab this part in just to visually get that. And we'll do the close-in div on here so we don't end up forgetting that. So what we're going to do then is we're going to have one container that has all of our athletes in it. So this will be, put in another div like that. And let's see, what do we want? Oh, surprise, surprise, we want another div. Web design has a lot of putting out divs in it because it's a good way of being able to put in sections, and we'll give a class to this one. And we'll call this an athlete card. And the reason being is because we're going to have 5 of these, right? So this is just going to be one of the cards that we end up having. So I'll show you in a minute how we can iterate this. But for now, what we'll do is we'll have an H4, and this will have the actual athlete name in it. So we'll give this a class, and we'll just call it athlete name so that we can apply some styles to it. And we'll close this for right now. Oops. Also notice this. This is not, you leave that open and then class is an attribute on this HTML element. And then you put in the closing after. And then to close the entire tag, you have to use one of these little doodads like we've done here with the slash before it. And then what we're going to do is we'll want a p tag, and so this is for paragraphs. So we want a paragraph of text here, right? And we want both of the x and the y value for each one. So we'll call this we'll give this a class of stat label. Again, to style it later. And then this will be the x-axis display. And put a colon after that. And we can remove that span, or close that span. And then we'll open it up and do helpers dot. We want to put out the value. We'll use the format value function that we created previously. And then, alright, so this will be athlete, which we haven't actually created yet. And then this will reference the x value. So the x-axis. And that should do it. Let's also put in a break line. So BR here is a break line. So we want the y-axis as well. So we'll just copy and paste that. We don't need a break for that one. And then we'll change this to y-axis. And this to y-axis display. So in order to iterate, what we're going to do is we're going to open it up and we'll use the dot join. So we'll do a dot join, and then what we're joining is essentially all of this stuff, all of this HTML that we just wrote. So after this div here, we will close the string that we just made. And we'll say for athlete in top athletes is the list that we made before. And then just close some of this stuff. So we need the bracket, parenthesis, and then the closing brace. Okay, so I guess we didn't create top athletes yet. So what we're going to do then is we'll just go ahead and do that now. So do you remember how in the constants here in the last video we made a better attribute for each of these dictionaries, better key, and we said that we'll be using it in the future? Well, the future is now, so we're going to use that. So we'll say to be able to tell like which is the better, is it a higher or lower score that's better. So if helpers dot get event info, and then the axis would be the x-axis because that's what we're interested in, right? And then the key would be better. And we want to see if that is, what exactly did we say here? Lower or higher? Lower. Okay. So we'll say lower. So if that is equal to lower, then what we want to do is we want to be able to get the top athletes. So we want to instruct pandas that we need to get the lower numbers for this. So we'll say n smallest of the 5 athletes, and that's on the x-axis column. And then we only need a handful of columns in here, so we want the x-axis, or the name, sorry, and the x-axis and the y-axis. And then we can convert that to a dictionary. We don't need another data frame. So we can just use the .toDict method and then pass in records to be able to actually get the records for it. And then we'll do, we have to set this equal to top athletes. It's a good thing spelling isn't really needed that much anymore these days. And then we'll basically just say else, because that'll include the neither, that it can be as well. So the other values, it can be higher or it can be neither, right? And in each case, we'll just take the upper value. So we just need to change this to n largest. Okay. So now we have our top athletes. So now we have the athlete. Great. And so this we can define as, we'll open up some interpolation again. and we'll say this can be the athlete name. And close that. Oh, and that's right, with format value, this is just the value right here, athlete x-axis. So we have to actually put in the key as well. So we'll say x-axis here, and then y-axis here. And then save that. And let's go ahead and bring that over. Okay, so it's the same kind of deal. We have everything is just in black text here. So let's go ahead and put some styling on that. Alright, so I went ahead here and I added in some more CSS. I just kind of copy and pasted it. And so this on the athlete section, so this is the div we made earlier. This has the actual top 5 in it. And I put on a background linear gradient. So what this code is going to do is, this is a hex value right here. So this is kind of a bluish color. And this hex value is kind of a purplish color. And what linear gradient does is it kind of goes from this at 0% to this at 100%. So it creates almost like a spectrum for you. And this 135 degrees, this is the angle that the gradient goes at. And the background attribute here, this applies it to the background of this entire section. Padding just kind of gives it some spacing. So does margin bottom. I'm going through it like this just because it's not really the intent to kind of go over like web design here. And then so border radius, this kind of gives it that like those rounded borders instead of just being so hard, just makes it look a little bit better. I gave each athlete card a background, so this is kind of a darkish background. I gave it some margin, padding, board radius. We went over that cursor pointer so that each time you hover over, it becomes a pointer. And then I added a color white there. Athlete name, this is kind of like a yellowish color, and stat label, this kind of a greenish color. So this one here, transition, let me show you what it looks like without that. So right now we have all the athletes up here, so we hover over them, basic. And so if we add in a transition, oh, I'm sorry, we need the hover effect too. So hover effect is one that I kind of saved for a little bit later, which later is now. So let me go ahead and bring that in. So athlete card hover. Okay. So this colon here indicates a pseudo effect, is what it's called in CSS. So it creates hover that's an event that you can do, right? So whenever you hover, it's going to transform everything that you're seeing on the screen in that athlete card by 1.2, so 1.02. So it's going to look a little bit different, and then the background will also transition to a little bit of a different color. So let's save that and then see how that looks. So now when we bring that over, you can see as we hover, the background looks a little bit darker. So it kind of gives it like a neat little effect. So that is in conjunction with this transition right here. So notice now that if we take out this transition property and save it and then bring it over, it's a little bit faster right here. So this transition property kind of transitions it to the next state, I guess. So now when you hover over it, you see it's like slowed down a little bit. Alright, so this now gives us a good looking HTML component that will take the top 5 athletes for whatever we specify. So in the next tutorial, let's go ahead and start putting in some JavaScript to add the numbers, which this really shows the true power of using components.